It's Amazon's The Rings of Power time again, episode 7. We start with what was on previously, and they show footage of the Harfoots, the Southlands and Khazad-dûm. So we're already off to a bad start, because at some point we know we're going to be back with the Harfoots. While researching videos, I came across an interesting quote from Tolkien. It went, "I cordially dislike allegory in all its manifestations, and always have done so since I grew old and wary enough to detect its presence." What struck me about this quote was that Amazon have taken Tolkien's work and filled it to the brim with allegory. I grow increasingly convinced that he would have hated this show with a burning passion. I've been trying some things out to try and get some better sound quality, so hopefully now it sounds less like I'm talking into a can, so please let me know if that worked and if it's an improvement. So what were the good and bad points? The highlight was the section with the dwarves. There was actually some quite good stuff in there. Sadly, the low points were almost everything else. We open up and Galadriel is covered in ash from the volcanic explosion, and how she's alive is anyone's guess. At Pompeii, the residents were 6 miles away from the volcano, and the cause of death seems to be somewhat undecided. 2 of the leading theories seem to be toxic gas from the volcano or being cooked to death by the heat, so in reality they should probably all be dead. Something about this opening immediately stuck in my craw. Galadriel gets up from the ruins covered in ash and has to swerve to avoid a horse that's on fire, and all this immediately rang a bell. So first up we have this scene from Game of Thrones Season 8 Episode 5. The episode is The Bells, that broadcast 13th of May 2019. Then we have Game of Thrones Season 5 Episode 9. The episode is The Dance of the Dragons, that broadcast 8th of June 2015. And finally, we have the clip of The Rings of Power Season 1 Episode 7. And the similarities are just glaring. I understand the makers were given the instruction to make a PG version of Game of Thrones, but that probably shouldn't have gone to the length of what appears to be clear plagiarism. The show's been getting a lot of flack for copy-pasting extras in their crowd scenes, and that's bad, but copy-pasting scenes from other shows is a lot worse. A building collapses on Isildur, and it's the prequel problem again. We already know he's not going to die. He's Isildur. He's got to cut the ring off of Sauron's finger. He can't be killed by a roof. And here we have the biggest villain of the episode, and the series as a whole really. Inconsistency in characters and in tone. The roof collapses on Isildur, and you're supposed to believe he's dead. And then it cuts to the Harfoots singing.
Went snailing one autumn day so fine.
None of which was in any way welcome for me, and it's also complete tonal whiplash. You're supposed to care about Isildur supposedly being killed, even though I don't, and even though he clearly hasn't. This is supposed to be a moment of sorrow. And then the director instead cuts to the Harfoot singing a twee and over-saccharine piece of irritating faux folk music. And it's supposed to be happy now all of a sudden, but in reality it just rarely annoys me. The tonal shift reminds me of this clip from BBC Radio 4 of a very posh presenter corpsing live on air.
American historians have discovered what they think is the earliest recording of the human voice, made on a device which scratched sound waves onto paper blackened by smoke. It was made in 1860, 17 years before Thomas Edison first demonstrated the gramophone, and featured an excerpt from a French song, Au clair de la lune. The award-winning screenwriter Abbie Mann has died at the age of 80. He won an Academy Award in 1961 for Judgment at Nuremberg. Abbie Mann also won several Emmys, including one in 1973 for a film which featured a police detective called the character on whom a long-running TV series was eventually based.
It's 10 minutes past 8. Fighting between Shia militias and Iraqi government forces is into its third day.
The tension never gets to properly build because of the insane narrative shifts. You didn't have in Aliens with Bill Paxton as Hudson fighting the aliens and about to be taken, and then have James Cameron say, "OK, now cut to the clip of Benny Hill and fire up yakety sax."